What if the fastest way to change your life was to stop trying to change it? What if effort wasn't what creates progress, but what blocks it? In this video, you'll discover how the ancient Eastern philosophy of Wu-Wei quietly restructures the way life moves through you, and why understanding this paradox changes everything. The more you try to control life, the less control you feel. The more force you apply, the more resistance you encounter. And the harder you try to change everything, the more tired you become. Taoism has observed this paradox for thousands of years and sums it up in an idea that is uncomfortable for the modern mind. Excessive effort is what distances us from what we seek. Wu-Wei does not stem from laziness. It comes from the intelligence of flow. The more you try to control life, the less control you feel. The more force you apply, the more resistance you encounter. And the harder you try to change everything, the more tired you become. Taoism has observed this paradox for thousands of years and sums it up in an idea that is uncomfortable for the modern mind. Excessive effort is what distances us from what we seek. Wu-Wei does not arise from laziness. It arises from the intelligence of flow. Wu-Wei is often translated as non-action, but this translation is incomplete. The real meaning is action without internal friction. It is not stopping action. It is stopping action against the nature of things. Most people live in constant conflict with reality. They force decisions. They rush processes. They resist the present moment. The Tao calls this acting out of the way. Observe water. It does not plan its path. It does not argue with the rock. It does not force its way through, yet it reaches the sea. Water wins not by force, but by aligned persistence. It adapts, it goes around, it waits when it needs to, and it moves forward when the path opens up. Wu-Wei is living like water, not like a hammer. The paradox begins here. When you stop forcing, things start to move. This seems absurd to a culture that glorifies effort, constant productivity, and absolute control. But the Tao does not measure value by wear and tear. It measures by harmony. The wise do not exhaust themselves trying to master life. He cooperates with it. The modern mind believes that everything depends on willpower. More discipline, more pressure, more demands. The Tao observes the result of this. Tired bodies, restless minds, lives that never rest, even when they achieve goals. Wu-Wei does not eliminate action. It eliminates unnecessary struggle. There is a profound difference between effort and alignment. Effort stems from the fear of losing. Alignment stems from the clarity of being on the right path. When you act in alignment, you don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to rush. You don't need to convince. The right action seems simple, almost obvious. And that is precisely why it is underestimated. Lao Tzu wrote that nature never hurries, and yet everything is accomplished. This phrase is not poetry. It is a diagnosis. Anxiety arises when we try to live outside of our natural rhythm, when we want to reap before it is time, when we resist the cycle. Wu-Wei is accepting the right time for things without giving up on them. Many people confuse Wu-Wei with passivity because they cannot imagine action without tension. But observe an artist in a state of flow, a musician, a craftsman, an experienced athlete. They don't force each movement. They flow. Wu-Wei is the state of flow applied to your entire life. When you act from Wu-Wei, something changes internally. The mind becomes silent. Action becomes precise. The waste of energy disappears. You do less, but accomplish more. This is the paradox that changes everything. Taoism does not ask you to abandon ambitions. It asks you to abandon internal warfare. Because internal warfare distorts decisions. It creates artificial urgency. It turns simple paths into mazes. Wu-Wei is clarity without internal violence. Think about how many times you insisted on something just because you didn't want to let go. How many times have you fought not for what was right, but for what was familiar? The Tao teaches that insisting is not the same as persevering. Perseverance follows the flow. Insistence confronts it. When you begin to live in Wu-Wei, You do not become indifferent. You become sensitive. Sensitive to signs. Sensitive to the moment. Sensitive to your own limits. This sensitivity does not weaken you. It sharpens your perception. The modern world rewards those who appear busy. The Tao values those who are present. Presence is not stagnation. It is conscious action without distraction. Those who live in Wu-Wei do not chase after everything. They choose precisely where to put their energy. There is a peace that comes when you stop competing with reality. This peace is not complacency. It is trust in the process. When you trust the process, you act better. When you act better, you suffer less. Wu-Wei does not just change what you do. It changes who you are while you do it. Life ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a path. And walking requires attention, not violence. The Tao does not promise total control. It promises alignment. And alignment always produces more lasting results than force. When you understand Wu-Wei, you realize something simple and profound. It is not life that needs to be mastered. It is you who needs to stop fighting it. True change does not happen when you push the world. It happens when you change the way you move within it. This is the paradox of Wu-Wei. Less force, more clarity, less haste, more precision. The Tao does not ask for sacrifice, it asks for alignment. When you live like this, something silent happens. Life begins to cooperate, not because you demanded it, but because you finally learn to walk at the same pace as it does. This is the teaching that transforms lives not by promise, but by consistency. This is the way of Wu-Wei. If this teaching has found you, it is not by chance. In Tao, nothing is forced. The right things simply align when we are ready to hear them. By signing up, you are not following a channel. You are choosing to walk with more clarity, less attachment, and more presence. If this makes sense now, stay. The path continues.